About a week ago, before it started raining, I rototilled this half of the garden with the Mahindra on the 4-foot forward rotating tiller, and now that it's dried up enough, I'm going to rototill this part with the John Deere X530 and the 42-inch hydraulic tiller to show you the difference. This is my John Deere X530. I bought it brand new in 2015, and I change the tires out when I go from cutting grass to working in the garden. I just put these rib tires on. It seems to work better for turning purposes, and then you have to have a pretty good amount of weight on the front to counteract this tiller. The tiller I've had before was a John Deere mechanical tiller that ran on a 325, and it had a belt that ran from the front, and then it changed from horizontal to vertical on that side with a big pulley, and then there was a shaft that came over, and then there was a little chain in here that ran the tines. This one's set up to, it can be either way. You can either do it forward rotating, so I just have to basically take these 4 bolts out, switch the tiller around so the tank would be on this side. That would make it forward rotating. Right now it's set up for counter rotating. You can see the direction. That tells you which way the tines are going. It's a very heavy tiller. It's got hydraulic fluid in, and where it's hydraulic drive, it's very quiet. You don't hear all that mechanical noise of the belts and pulleys and everything else. It's pretty simple to put on. You can drag it, and when you drag it, you don't actually use the wheels. I just kind of pick it up like a suitcase and drag it, and so the tines are what it is actually turning instead of the wheels. If you try to maneuver it on the wheels, it's just so ungodly to wield. It just doesn't make any sense. And then putting it on, it's best to do it on a cement floor, and then you got to put a couple blocks of wood under the tires to clear the pulley and everything underneath the axle. And it's not too terribly difficult. It just attaches in the center with a couple of latch downs right there where the mower would attach, and then on the back it sets on these two studs. So you've got one on each side here, and it just kind of sets on it, and then you've got the hydraulic lift. And this right here is for the sleeve hitch that I have. But I do like the hydraulic lift on it. I like the hydraulic power steering. One thing worth mentioning about this rototiller is that the drive runs off the hydraulic motor and not really the tractor motor. The tractor motor turns the pulley that runs the hydraulic motor. So consequently, you don't have to run the tractor RPMs as high. You can just run it, mid throttle. And so that adds to the quietness of it as well. I really like this tiller a lot. It's, like I said, it's not cheap, but it's a great rototiller for what I've used it for. The one problem I've had, and it's totally my fault, is I became complacent. And if you look, it's hard to see under here. Okay, right here. You can barely see it. These ears have to go over that latch, and then there's another latch that goes over it, and you have to put a cotter pin in it with a drilled pin. And one time that came unhooked. I didn't realize it until I put the tractor away, and my frame, so this frame right here was slightly bent, and so that does make installing the tiller a little bit more difficult than it used to be, because the clearance between the outside of this pin right here and the inside is very close tolerance now. It still fits. It's a little bit of a struggle, but just one word to the wise is those things vibrate, and then the pin fell out, the drilled pin fell out, and then the whole thing ended up being tweaked maybe an inch. One reason I show these tractors here on my YouTube channel is because I don't like to overhype a piece of machinery, but I don't want to be overcritical of it either. So I'm just giving you demonstrations of what I actually use and the issues I have or don't have with it. And so far, I have not had any issues with this tractor. It's really been a really good piece of equipment. Here, there's a lot of ledge still, and no matter how many times I've come over this and picked rocks out of it, there's always more. And you can see right there, that mound is all the rocks that came out of this garden. Now the one problem I have had with a counter rotating tiller, and I'll show you that real quick before I start, is what it's doing is it's actually picking up things and then running it over the housing and out the back. So if you get a rock, and I think I've got most of them out of here, but sometimes you'll get a sizable rock, and the flat ones are the worst. They will jam in between the shaft for the tines and the top of the housing, and then it's jammed in good. So you have to flip the thing up, and if you're lucky, you can just wiggle the shaft a few times and get it out. This was one pass forward rotating, one pass counter rotating. And other than, you know, the wetness, just look at it and see the difference. You can see a lot of the trash, even though you wouldn't think so, is still on the top, and it seems like this one buried more. It's just counter to what I would have thought. Overall, I feel like the counter rotating tiller does a nice job. This is the forward rotating on the right. If you look at this, you'll see it's very wavy, and that has been the case for as long as I've owned that tiller. The cost difference between this hydraulic tiller and the PTO tiller that came with the Mahindra, they're really about the same price. It was over $2,000. I don't even know if John Deere makes these anymore, or if they did, how much they cost. I know the dealership I bought it from said they basically never sold them. They always sold the mechanical ones, which were, geez, at the time they were like $1,270, I think. And this one was, I want to say, $2,200, so it's almost double the price, or $1,000 more than the mechanical one. But I have had the mechanical ones before, and the handling, the finish, and just the overall performance of the hydraulic it's not even in the same category. And so while this isn't a comprehensive review, I'm just showing you the tiller that I have, how it works, and compared it to the Mahindra 4-foot tiller that I have. You know, one of the key advantages of these smaller rototillers is you can get in between rows, and if you've got enough real estate, you just make your rows wider, and then you can easily cultivate in between the rows to keep the weeds down. So, well, that's it in a nutshell. I don't want to bore you. Thanks for watching.